So think about this for a second. You break your arm, right? You go to the hospital, and the technician hands you an X-ray.
Classic scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And you hold it up to the light, and you see that jagged white line, fracturing the radius. The doctor points to it, and it's binary. It's clean.
Right. There's no debating it.
Exactly. The bone is broken, or it is not. And I think there is a profound comfort in that kind of diagnostic precision. Like, we desperately want the universe to operate like that X-ray machine.
We really do?
We want objective evidence to yield this universal objective recognition. But the moment you take that expectation and try to apply it to human cognition,
it completely falls apart.
It shatters. The machine just shatters. You can put an undeniable objective truth in front of 10 different people, and you will not get 10 identical skins.
No, you definitely won't.
You get this landscape of human reaction that is chaotic and murky and honestly deeply unsettling.
Well, yeah, because introducing human free will into any equation immediately destroys the illusion of a passive, objective reality.
Right.
I mean, when a human being encounters a truth, they do not act as a blank screen that just, merely reflects an image. They act as a processor.
A processor, exactly.
Right. So the objective reality of the information, it collides with the deeply subjective, deeply volatile state of the person who is perceiving it.
Yeah.
And so the result is never just a reflection. It is always a reaction.
And that collision, that specific reaction, is the exact territory we are mapping today on this deep dive.
I'm very excited for this one.
Me too. We are pulling apart a really profound, just paradigm-shifting text by Dr. Khaled Waleed. It's titled Duality of the State Singular, The Mechanics of Guidance, or in its original framing, Zajiat al-Ahad.
Such a fascinating title.
It really is. And Dr. Waleed is not interested in vague philosophical musings about why people disagree on the internet.
No, not at all.
He is offering a literal mechanical physics of spiritual and cognitive guidance. And he frames this terrifyingly specific question right out of the gate.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back.
He asks, how can a single pure source of divine truth create two entirely opposite reactions?
Which is the ultimate paradox.
Right. According to his thesis, this pure truth, what he calls the revelation or the surah, it increases faith and clarity in a certain subset of people.
Mm-hmm.
But then in others, this exact same pure source actively increases filth or darkness, or what he terms Regi.
Yes, the Reese.
So the mission today for you listening is to figure this out. How does a pure source of light generate darkness? Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to dismantle that paradox, we first have to look at how Dr. Waleed actually defines the source itself.
Okay, where does he start?
He uses the concept of the singular, which is al-Ahad.
Al-Ahad, right.
Right. This is the ultimate undivided source of reality, the creator. And this singular source emits the revelation, the text, the truth.
Okay, that makes sense.
But instinctively, our linear human logic assumes that a pure emission from a pure source will simply cleanse whatever it touches.
Like bleach.
Exactly. Like if you pour clean water on a dirty floor, the floor gets cleaner.
Yeah, that's just basic physics to us.
But Dr. Waleed argues that the divine text does not operate like water. It operates as a crossroad.
A crossroad.
Yes, the text itself is completely neutral in its origin. It does not carry a predetermined outcome for the person reading it.
Interesting.
The outcome is generated entirely by the recipient's free will.
Okay, let's visualize this chemically for everyone listening. Imagine you are standing in a laboratory, right? And you're holding a pipette.
I love this analogy.
Thanks. So inside that pipette is Dr. Waleed's concept of the surah, that pure, singular truth. It is a highly reactive, unadulterated region.
Right.
And you have two beakers on the table in front of you. You squeeze a single drop into beaker A, and the liquid instantly stabilizes. It turns a clear, beautiful blue.
Nice and calm.
Yeah. But then you squeeze the exact same drop from the exact same pipette into beaker B, and the liquid violently fizzes, it overheats, and it turns this thick, toxic red.
It's a complete mess.
Total mess. But the drops falling from the pipette, they didn't change their molecular structure in midair.
No, the source was identical.
The variable was the environment they crashed into. So beaker A was holding a base, but beaker B was holding an acid. The pure region just acted as a catalyst, right? It forced the internal state of the beaker to manifest physically.
That is exactly it. And if that beaker is already filled with acid, which in Dr. Waleed's framework represents ego, arrogance, or this desperate need to control reality, The introduction of that pure chemical force is a violent, dark reaction.
So Dr. Waleed actually categorizes human hearts into these distinct states of being.
He does. The first category, the base in your chemical analogy, is what we might call the seekers of mastery.
Okay.
These are individuals who approach reality seeking lordship by right.
Lordship by right. What does that actually mean in the context of human psychology? Because, I mean, the term lordship usually conjures images of domination or control, like a tyrant.
Right, but in Dr. Waleed's framework, lordship by right is the exact opposite of arbitrary domination.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is mastery achieved through submission to objective truth.
Okay, walk me through that.
Think of a scientist who spends decades studying physics to build a working airplane. They have achieved a form of lordship by right over aerodynamics.
Right. They mastered flight.
But they didn't command the air to hold the plane up through sheer willpower.
No, they crash immediately.
Exactly. They submitted their intellect to the unbreakable laws of physics. And through that humble submission, they achieved mastery.
I see.
So when these individuals, the genuine seekers, encounter the pure text, their internal state is validated. The chemical reaction is positive.
And what does Dr. Waleed call that reaction?
He uses the Arabic term istibshar, which means rejoicing or receiving glad tidings. The truth actually expands their capacity because their will is already aligned with reality.
Because they aren't fighting the laws of physics, so the laws of physics empower them.
Precisely.
Okay, but then we have the second beaker, the acid, the arrogant and the hasty. And Dr. Waleed links the disease in these hearts specifically to the historical rush to worship the calf.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, that's a very specific archetype to pull from.
It is, but it's perfect.
Ah.
Because the calf represents the ultimate manifestation of human impatience. It's the demand for a tangible, controllable reality over a transcendent, demanding one.
Right, because the calf doesn't ask anything of you.
Exactly. It doesn't impose moral laws. It doesn't judge you. It is just a golden idol you can point to and possess and control.
He's convenient.
Highly convenient. So individuals harboring this disease, they operate from a state of deep arrogance. They do not want to submit to objective truth. They want objective truth to bend to their preferences.
So what happens when the pure regent drops into that specific beaker?
The reaction is incredibly volatile. When the exact same pure words enter their hearts, the truth acts as an existential threat. It threatens to completely dismantle their entire framework of control.
So the ego just goes to war.
It goes to war.
The truth backs the ego into a corner, and the ego lashes out. And this is where the concept of rees, or filth, comes into play, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because the text doesn't magically inject dirt into them. The text simply forces their internal machinery to run at maximum capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And because their gears are completely out of alignment, the friction just generates massive amounts of heat and toxic waste.
That's a great way to put it.
Think about you, listening right now, sitting in a corporate boardroom, and a perfectly neutral data report is presented on the projector. It's just a spreadsheet. Columns and rows of revenue and loss.
Completely objective data.
Right. And you might look at those numbers and realize your department's strategy is failing. So you accept the data, you pivot, and you align with reality.
That is istibshar.
Exactly. But the executive sitting right next to you, whose entire identity and bonus and ego are tied to that failing strategy. They look at the exact same spreadsheet, and their brain goes into overdrive.
They panic.
They panic. They start attacking the methodology of the data collection. They start twisting the metrics. They invent this bizarre narrative where a massive financial loss is actually like a long-term strategic win.
Yeah, they weaponize the neutral data to dig a deeper trench of denial.
It's wild.
It is. And Dr. Waleed points out that this is confirmation bias elevated to a cosmic existential scale.
Wow.
And he makes a definitive point here. God did not force that executive into a state of denial.
Right.
The singular source merely provided the spreadsheet. The individual was presented with a clear crossroad, and they chose their alignment by their own free will.
They made the choice.
They chose to join what he calls the party of Satan, which, in this framework, just represents the party of division, distortion, and ego, rather than the party of God, which represents singularity and truth.
Okay, so the internal beaker has turned toxic. But that toxicity doesn't just stay neatly contained in the heart, does it?
No, it always leaks out.
Right, it leaks out into behavior.
Yeah.
So how does this internal disease manifest when these individuals are forced to interact with society and the truth simultaneously?
Well, Dr. Waleed highlights a specific linguistic shift in the text, that perfectly exposes their behavioral response.
Okay, what's the shift?
He focuses on a fascinating verse that describes the hypocrites when a surah, a truth, is revealed in their presence. The text captures them in the moment, saying, "Did anyone see you?" Then they turned away.
Did anyone see you?
Right. And Dr. Waleed zeroes in on the Arabic word used for anyone, which is ahad, spelled exactly the same as the name of the singular god, al-ahad.
Oh, wow. The wordplay there is staggering.
It really is brilliant, because the hypocrites are sitting in the gathering, right? The truth drops into the room like a bomb.
Yeah.
It makes them deeply uncomfortable because it exposes that internal rot we talked about. So their immediate instinct is evasion.
They want to run.
They want to run. They look around the room, whispering to each other, asking, "Did ahad see you?"
Meaning a person?
Exactly. They are asking if any lowercase ahad, any random human being, any peer, any rival caught them reacting.
Did anyone see us wince?
Did anyone notice us slipping out the back door? In their absolute panic to manage the social optics, to hide from ahad the human, they are willfully, comically ignoring al-ahad, the singular God who is the ultimate witness of the entire scene.
They are completely missing the big picture.
Completely.
So their gaze is entirely horizontal. They are obsessed with the x-axis of human perception. Like, what does society think of me? What is my status?
Right.
They are so hyper-focused on the horizontal that the vertical axis, the cosmic reality of a creator watching them, it just ceases to exist in their minds.
Yes, they become spiritually flat.
But wait, this is where I have to push back on Dr. Waleed's mechanics.
Okay, let's hear.
Because up to this point, everything is driven by human choice.
Yeah.
They choose to look horizontally. They choose to twist the words.
Right.
But Dr. Waleed then references the text, saying that because of these actions, God diverts their hearts. The Arabic term is saraf.
Yes, Sarah.
If an omnipotent being actively reaches down and diverts my heart, my free will is gone. I am trapped in a maze where the architect has sealed the exits. So how does Dr. Waleed reconcile a divine diversion with human free will?
That is the most critical friction point in the entire framework, and Dr. Waleed resolves it not through theology, actually, but through cognitive physics.
Cognitive physics.
Yes. He insists that this diversion, the saraf, it is not an arbitrary lightning bolt of punishment thrown from the clouds.
Okay.
It is the mechanical consequence of neuroplasticity applied to the soul.
Neuroplasticity of the soul. Explain the mechanics of that, because that sounds intense.
It is. Think about how the brain works.
Oh.
When you continually choose the path of evasion, when you spend years looking around the room for a head to manipulate, you're actively rewiring your own processing centers.
You're carving grooves into your brain.
Exactly. You are building thick, entrenched neural pathways of deception. Dr. Waleed calls this twisting tongues.
Twisting tongues.
It is the act of constantly massaging reality to fit a narrative. If you spend decades staring into a funhouse mirror, constantly adjusting your posture so you look normal in the distortion.
Your brain eventually accepts the funhouse mirror as baseline reality.
Yes. The diversion of their hearts is the moment that biological deafness sets in. They lose the literal capacity to understand the stability of words.
So God isn't blinding them. God is simply ratifying the physiological state they built for themselves.
Precisely. And Dr. Waleed uses a terrifying example from the source text to show this.
What's the example?
He points to individuals who hear a clear command like the word vasinu, which indicates disobedience or rebellion.
Okay.
But because their internal processing has been so severely diverted, so structurally mangled by their own lifelong habit of lying, their brain registers that word entirely backwards.
Wait, really?
Yes. They hear an explicit description of disobedience, and they genuinely perceive it as obedience. They have completely shattered their own internal compass.
The concept of hearing disobedience and perceiving obedience is chilling. I mean, it means you can reach an event horizon in your own mind.
You really can.
You cross a threshold where you can no longer be reasoned with, not because you are stubborn, but because the receptor itself is fundamentally broken.
The hardware is corrupted.
Right. If someone finally takes away the funhouse mirror and places a perfectly flat, accurate mirror in front of you, you look into the flat mirror and scream that it's distorted.
And you genuinely believe it.
That's the tragedy. You are utterly blind, and you are the one who gouged your own eyes out over a period of 30 years.
This is exactly why Dr. Waleed states unequivocally that God did not wrong them. God presented the pure baseline.
Right.
They chose to stretch out their hands and tongues to manipulate it. So the seraph, the diversion, is just the universe honoring their choice. If you demand to live in a reality where up is down and truth is a commodity to be traded, The cosmic mechanics will eventually lock you into that reality. You will be sealed inside your own distortion.
Which introduces a massive problem for the individual locked inside.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you are suffering from this biological deafness, this profound cognitive diversion, how would you ever know you are failing?
You wouldn't.
Right. How do you know you are off course if your compass tells you north is south? But Dr. Waleed addresses this, right? He shows that the universe doesn't just let you drift off into the void quietly.
No, it definitely doesn't.
It throws obstacles in your path. And this brings us to the concept of the annual fitna, or the cyclical stress test.
Yes. Dr. Waleed extracts a very specific structural rhythm from the text here. He points out that humanity, specifically those engaged in this cognitive manipulation, they are tested once or twice every single year.
So it's not a random occurrence.
Not at all. It is a built-in cosmic audit, and they are tested against what Dr. Waleed calls the balance.
Okay, let's unpack the balance. Because we aren't talking about a set of scales weighing feathers and gold here.
Right. No.
What is the balance mechanically?
The balance is the objective architecture of the Creator's reality. It is the unchangeable framework.
So what does that include?
It includes specific timings, natural laws, explicitly defined prohibitions, and observable signs in both the physical universe and the divine text. The balance is the ultimate grounding mechanism.
Okay, so it's the anchor.
Exactly. And once or twice a year, an individual who has been living in their funhouse mirror reality is violently brought face to face with the flat mirror of the balance.
The stress test.
Yes. They are given a stress test. The universe essentially asks, here is undeniable reality. Will you finally drop the distortion and align with it? Or will you find a new way to twist it?
And because their receptors are broken, they fail the test.
Almost every time.
But Dr. Waleed doesn't just say they fail.
Yeah.
He explicitly details how they fail, like the actual mechanism of their evasion.
He does.
He uses the historical and conceptual practice of Nazis. And we need to spend some real time on Nazis, because it is, in my opinion, the ultimate metaphor for self-sabotage.
I completely agree. Nazis translates to the manipulation or postponement of time.
Okay.
So in the historical context Dr. Waleed is analyzing, there were sacred months, specific periods of time dictated by the balance, where warfare and certain trade practices were strictly prohibited.
So it was an objective boundary.
Exactly. But the people living under the system found it economically and politically inconvenient.
Of course they did.
Right. If a lucrative trade caravan was passing through during a sacred month, or if an enemy was suddenly vulnerable, they didn't want to be constrained by the rules.
But they also didn't want to outright say, you know, we are abandoning the religion.
No, because they wanted the aesthetic of obedience while practicing total disobedience.
All about the optics.
Completely. So they invented Nazis. They would simply announce, we are shifting the calendar. This month is no longer sacred. We are moving the sacred month to next month.
That is just incredibly audacious.
Isn't it? They altered the coordinates of time itself to accommodate their desires. They hacked the calendar so they could conduct their wars and steal their wealth while maintaining the delusion that they were still operating within the rules.
They changed the underlying infrastructure of reality to avoid changing their behavior.
Yes.
Just think about the psychological weight of that for a second. The audacity to look at an objective law of the universe and say, no, the law is just scheduled wrong. I will reschedule the law.
It's peak arrogance.
And while we can look back at ancient tribes manipulating lunar calendars and scoff at their hypocrisy, Dr. Waleed is really forcing us to look at the mechanics of the action. Because we perform Nazis all the time in our own personal psychology.
We absolutely do. Whenever we face our own cyclical fitna, our own annual stress tests, we utilize the exact same mechanism of evasion.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Picture your own life right now listening to this.
Yeah, think about your patterns.
You have that one argument with your spouse that flares up like clockwork every 6 months. Or you have a career hurdle, like you get passed over for a promotion year after year.
Or a toxic habit.
Right, a toxic coping mechanism that rears its head every winter without fail.
Yeah.
That is your fitna.
Yeah, the stress test.
You are hitting the boundary of the balance. The objective reality of your choices is producing a measurable friction in your life. And the healthy response, the lordship by right response, is to look at the friction, realize your internal machinery is misaligned, and do the grueling work of changing yourself.
But doing that requires you to admit fault.
Exactly. It requires you to fold your ego.
And the ego refuses to fold. So instead of changing yourself, you perform Nazi.
You hack the calendar.
You manipulate the context. You shift the blame to the calendar, to the environment, to the people around you. You say, my marriage isn't the problem, it's just a stressful quarter at work.
Yep.
Or, I didn't get the promotion because the new VP has a vendetta against me. Or, I only slipped back into this bad habit because the economy is terrible right now.
You are moving the sacred months.
Yes. You are altering the parameters of your reality so that you are perpetually the victim of circumstance, rather than the author of your own misalignment.
And by constantly shifting the goalposts, you glide right through the annual cosmic stress test without ever actually feeling the stress.
Because you outsourced it.
Right. And the text literally says they pass through the trial and they do not remember.
They do not remember.
They experience the friction, they manipulate the narrative to explain away the friction, and then they completely forget that the friction ever happened.
So they learn nothing.
Nothing at all. They are sealed tighter into the diversion.
This is why Dr. Waleed's text is so urgent. He is showing that cognitive blindness is not a static state. It is an active, ongoing project.
You have to work hard to stay blind.
Very hard. You have to constantly invent new rationalizations every single time the balance tests you.
So, if the default state of human ego is to actively build a fortress of rationalizations, to constantly rewrite the calendar of reality to avoid looking in the mirror, how does anyone ever break out?
It's a daunting question.
Right. If we are biologically deafened by our own lies, is there an external intervention that can shatter the funhouse mirror?
Well, this is where Dr. Waleed introduces the messenger. But he frames the messenger not as some magical savior, but as a proof of concept.
Okay, let's explore that. Because Dr. Waleed places massive emphasis on the precise nature of the messenger, doesn't he?
He does. He pulls focus to the phrase, he has come to you from yourself.
From yourself.
Yes. In the grand mechanics of guidance, the messenger is not an extraterrestrial entity. He is not an angel composed of pure, frictionless light who just glides above human temptation.
Right.
He is biologically, psychologically, and sociologically human. He is from us.
But let's play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
If humanity is completely trapped in a cycle of distortion, wouldn't it be far more efficient for the singular source to just send an angel?
You think so, initially.
I mean, a flawless, glowing being descending from the sky would instantly shatter all arguments. It would terrify everyone into immediate obedience. Why send a flawed human vessel to deliver the ultimate truth? Doesn't a human messenger just invite more debate and more nasi?
It definitely invites debate, but it preserves the fundamental integrity of the test.
How so?
If an angel descended, obedience would be extracted through pure terror and overwhelming visual spectacle. It would bypass free will entirely.
Okay, that makes sense.
And more importantly, Dr. Waleed argues that an angelic messenger gives humanity an immediate out.
An excuse.
Yes. The arrogant heart would look at an angel and say, well, of course he can align perfectly with the balance. He doesn't have cortisol in his veins.
Right, he doesn't get stressed.
He doesn't feel hunger or grief or ego. The test is rigged in his favor, so I am not obligated to even try.
So an angelic standard makes human mastery irrelevant.
Exactly. By insisting that the messenger is from yourselves, Dr. Waleed proves that achieving true lordship, which he equates to reaching the knowledge of certainty and aligning perfectly with the balance, is a physically and cognitively achievable state for a human being.
The messenger is the working prototype.
Yes.
Yeah.
He operates with the exact same biological hardware, the same societal pressures, and the same emotional bandwidth as the people he is speaking to. The only difference is that he has completely eradicated the arrogance that demands reality bend to him.
He has submitted entirely to the pure regent.
Entirely.
The messenger is the proof that the X-ray machine of human cognition can work correctly, provided you clean the lens of ego.
That's a great callback.
And Dr. Waleed highlights a profound emotional reality of this prototype. He points out the verse saying, it is grievous to him what you suffer.
Yes, the empathy of the messenger.
Right, the messenger isn't standing on a pedestal glaring down in judgment.
Yeah.
He is literally watching humanity inflict massive psychological and physical damage upon itself.
Dr. Waleed frames this as the friction between the path of error, which is Sabil al-Gay, and the path of reason, Sabil al-Rashad.
Okay.
The suffering that humanity experiences the Anat is not an arbitrary punishment. It is the inevitable blowback of living on the path of error.
Because they're crashing into reality.
Exactly. When you spend your life twisting reality, constantly performing nasis, you eventually collide with the unyielding walls of the balance. You crash, and that crash causes deep suffering.
And the messenger hates to see this.
He hates it. He possesses the empathy of a human who understands the pain of the crash.
He is watching people repeatedly press their hands onto a red-hot stove because they have structurally convinced themselves the stove is made of ice.
That's horrifying, but accurate.
And he is desperately pleading with them to simply look at the blistering burns on their skin and accept the reality of the heat. He wants to guide them back to the path of reason.
Which Dr. Waleed deeply connects to the concept of Baka, or the covenant.
The covenant.
Baka represents the foundational point of alignment, the original agreement between human will and divine reality. It is the center of gravity where the lordship by right is established.
So the messenger is trying to pull the scattered, burning remnants of humanity back into the orbit of this center.
Yes, exactly.
And Dr. Waleed notes that to anchor this entire system, the truth, the test, the messenger, the covenant there must be an ultimate focal point.
Right, a failsafe.
Because a system this complex, this prone to human hacking and distortion, requires a failsafe. And he closes out this section of his theory by pointing us to the throne.
The great throne.
But he doesn't describe the throne as a golden chair in the clouds, which is what we usually picture. He redefines it using terminology that feels wildly modern, almost like systems architecture.
He really does. He describes the great throne of Allahad as the ultimate command and control center.
The cosmic server room.
Exactly. It is the absolute authority that guarantees the physics of guidance will operate with unwavering consistency.
Okay, wait, so how does that work practically?
Well, when human beings are down on Earth twisting their tongues, hacking the calendar with Nazis, and rewriting the rules to suit their egos, it can feel like reality itself is unraveling.
It can feel like the truth is losing.
Yes. But Dr. Waleed states that the command and control center is isolated from user error.
Oh, I love that.
The throne protects the source code, the divine words, the ultimate balance. They cannot be altered at the root level.
You can hack the interface on your own local machine. You can change the font. You can delete the warnings. But you cannot alter the code on the main server.
You cannot touch the server.
The throne ensures that objective reality remains intact, just waiting for you to eventually crash into it.
And that is why the ultimate instruction given to the messenger and by extension to anyone seeking the truth is, say, Allah is sufficient for me. He is the Lord of the great throne.
Bypass the local network entirely.
Yes. When the noise of the funhouse mirrors gets too loud, when society is obsessively looking around for the human, you ping the command center directly.
You anchor your will to the unchangeable infrastructure.
Exactly.
Okay, so up to this point in Dr. Waleed's text, we have been establishing that infrastructure. We've defined the pure source, the opposing human reactions, the cognitive blindness, the testing mechanism, the messenger, and the central throne.
We have laid out all the components on the table.
But the universe is not static. Human existence is not a frozen diorama.
No, it is entirely dynamic. We are moving through time.
And this brings us to the absolute pinnacle of Dr. Waleed's framework. This is the paradigm shift. He takes all these static components and puts them into motion. He introduces the physics of the wave of rise and fall.
This is where his theory just elevates to a whole new level. He transitions from the architecture of reality to the actual mechanics of motion. Like, how does an individual actually travel through this landscape without crashing?
Right.
And to explain this, Dr. Waleed completely dismantles and re-engineers our understanding of two fundamental terms, Quran and Furqan.
Historically, people treat these two words almost as synonyms, right? Or simply as titles for a book.
Yeah, mostly just interchangeable terms for the scripture.
But Dr. Waleed treats them as opposing, complementary mechanical forces. And to fully grasp what he is doing here, we have to look at the mechanics of any living system.
Okay.
Look at your own biology. Your existence is defined by a continuous, unbroken rhythm of opposite actions. You must inhale.
Right.
Drawing oxygen deep into your core, contracting your chest, gathering resources into a centralized point. That contraction gives you power.
It sustains you.
But you cannot hold an inhale forever. You will die. You must eventually exhale. You push that gathered power outward, expanding your chest, moving air over your vocal cords to speak, sending oxygen to your muscles to walk, to build, to fight.
You have to interact with the world.
Exactly. You contract to gather strength.
Yeah.
You expand to manifest reality. You inhale. You exhale.
And this is the exact rhythm Dr. Waleed applies to the mechanics of guidance. He takes the word Quran and strips it back to its linguistic root, which means to gather, to compile, to bring together.
So in his physics, Quran is the phase of conversion or contraction. The inhale, it is the gravitational pullback to the singular source, the Allahad.
Right. When an individual or a society is in the Quran phase, they are pulling inward. They are gathering the unchangeable truths from the command and control center.
They are syncing with the server.
Yes, linking their human will directly to divine knowledge. It is a state of intense concentration and unification. You are anchoring yourself so deeply to the baseline reality that the funhouse mirrors completely lose their power over you.
You are filling your lungs with the pure regent.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, you can't just hold your breath. You cannot spend your entire life sitting in a sealed room, meditating on the singular truth, completely divorced from the messy reality of human existence.
You have to walk out the door.
You have to act. And that is the exhale. That is Furqan.
Dr. Waleed defines Furqan as the phase of diversion or expansion.
Expansion.
Right. The root of the word means to separate, to distinguish, to cleave apart. Once you have gathered the truth in the Quran phase, you must step into the complex, chaotic world.
And Furqan is the active application of that knowledge into reality.
Exactly. And when pure truth enters human reality, it immediately forces a separation. It divides the true from the false. It distinguishes the ethical business practice from the exploitative one. It separates the party of God from the party of Satan.
It's the sorting mechanism.
Yes. Furqan is the outward radiation of the truth you gathered during contraction.
Contraction and expansion. Gravity and radiation. It is literally a breathing universe.
It is.
And Dr. Waleed maps this directly onto the cycle of life and death itself. He suggests that these two forces are what animate the cosmos.
It's a profound philosophical loop. He argues that Furqan, the expansion, the pushing outward, the dividing, is the force that takes dead, unformed matter and gives it cognitive life and movement.
It wakes the system up.
Exactly. It forces it to interact. But if the system only expands, it eventually dissipates into chaos and entropy. It burns out.
Like a star exploding.
Right. Therefore, Quran, the contraction, the gathering, pulls it back from the brink of chaos, returning it to the source, to the singularity. From death to life, through expansion, and from life to death through contraction. And he notes that this exact breathing cycle explains the historical momentum of the 8 prophets he studies in the text.
How so?
Every prophetic mission was a massive cosmic breath. The prophet would arrive, pull a shattered society back to the singular source, the Quran phase, and then push them outward to build a new civilization, to manifest that truth in economics, law, and culture, the Furqan phase. This cycle is what creates an opening, or faith.
I want to spend some time on the specific analogy Dr. Waleed uses to crystallize this wave mechanic, because it is arguably the most beautiful and honestly terrifying image in the entire text.
The bird analogy.
Yes. He asks us to look at the anatomy of a bird in flight. For a bird to achieve lift, to conquer gravity and navigate the open sky, it cannot hold a static posture.
It has to move.
It must constantly perform 2 opposing actions.
It must spread its wings and it must fold its wings.
The spreading of the wings is the Furqan, the expansion. The bird pushes its feathers outward, catching the wind, engaging with the resistance of the atmosphere. It covers distance. It hunts. It operates in the world.
But the bird cannot keep its wings locked in an expanded state. The resistance of the air would literally tear its joints apart, or it would simply stall and lose momentum.
It would crash.
Exactly. To continue flying, it must violently pull its wings back into its body. It must fold them tight against its core to reset the stroke.
And that folding inward is the Quran, the contraction.
Gathering its strength back to the center line.
Expand and contract. Push and pull, rise and fall. This is the wave of rise and fall.
Yes.
And Dr. Waleed defines the rise not as a constant upward trajectory, but as the successful rhythmic matching of internal knowledge, the contraction to external reality, the expansion.
Yeah.
You rise by maintaining the rhythm.
But the fall, the catastrophic failure of the system, happens when an entity tries to break the physics equation.
Right. What happens to a bird that refuses to fold its wings?
It plummets.
It just drops.
If you try to fly by only expanding, by constantly pushing outward into the world, engaging in politics, business, and social warfare, without ever contracting back to the singular truth to check your alignment,
You suffer cognitive and spiritual collapse.
you lose your anchor. Your wings snap under the pressure of the world.
You exhaust yourself trying to manipulate the wind because you completely forgot how to tuck your wings back into your core. You become obsessed with the furqan, the judging, the separating, the action.
But because you have abandoned the Quran, the internal purity, the connection to the throne, your actions become hollow, frantic, and ultimately destructive.
Dr. Waleed actually symbolizes this specific type of collapse by referencing a really haunting metaphor from the text.
Which one?
The companion of the dog who clung heavily to the earth.
Oh, yeah.
This represents an entity that had the potential for flight. They had the capacity to ride the wave of guidance.
No.
But because they severed the rhythm, because they stopped contracting to the source, gravity won.
They became entirely weighed down by material desires.
Completely earthly. They dropped out of the sky and became chained to the dirt.
They became a creature of pure horizontal existence, staring at the mud, having completely forgotten the vertical sky.
It is a devastating image of potential loss to ego.
Truly devastating.
But Dr. Waleed doesn't just leave this as a metaphor for individual psychology. He applies this exact mechanical failure to the collapse of massive civilizations.
He scales it all the way up.
Let's look at his historical case study. How does a society break the wave?
Well, Dr. Waleed points an analytical lens at the historical narrative of the children of Israel. He uses their history as the prime example of attempting to monopolize and dismantle the mechanics of the wave.
They tried to break the physics.
They didn't just fail accidentally. They systematically tried to hack the physics of Quran and Furqan.
Okay, so how did they hack the Quran, the contraction phase?
They attempted to hoard it.
Hoard the truth.
Yes. The Quran phase is supposed to be the universal connection to the singular source. But they looked at the divine knowledge, the scriptures, the direct line to the command center, and they claimed exclusive ownership.
They gate-kept it.
They built a vault around the contraction phase, declaring that only they possessed the right to connect to the source. They turned the universal pure region into a private tribal asset.
So they essentially said, only our specific bird is allowed to fold its wings and rest at the center. Everyone else must remain out in the cold.
Exactly. But a society cannot exist purely in a vault. They still had to live in the real world.
They still had to exhale.
They had to engage in the Furqan phase, the expansion, the economics, the warfare, the daily reality of human division. But because their contraction was rooted in tribal arrogance rather than universal submission, their expansion was violently distorted.
And this is where they engaged in massive structural manipulation.
Yeah, this brings us back to the Nazis, the manipulation of time.
Right.
But Dr. Waleed notes they didn't just manipulate time, they manipulated space as well. He introduces the concept of shifting their focus to the Mecca of the East.
The Mecca of the East, what does that mean?
Dr. Waleed highlights how they actively altered the geographical and spiritual coordinates of their reality. They didn't just change the calendar to suit their economic needs, they shifted the literal direction of their spiritual focus, the Qibla, the orienting point toward the east.
So they changed the compass.
They aligned their religious mechanics with their political and material desires rather than the objective balance set by the throne. They tried to build a completely custom-made reality.
Let's just summarize the sheer scale of that hubris.
It's massive.
They hoarded the source code in a private vault. Then they walked out into the world and actively hacked the operating system of time, the calendar and space, the directional orientation to ensure their own supremacy.
Right.
They spread their wings into a reality they had completely artificially constructed while refusing to ever genuinely contract back to the honest, unchangeable source.
And Dr. Waleed's conclusion here is brutal in its mechanical logic.
What does he conclude?
He states that their collapse was not merely a divine punishment sent down out of anger. It was physically, cognitively, and sociologically inevitable.
Inevitable.
You cannot break the fundamental physics of the wave and expect to keep flying. If you sever the true connection to the source and you constantly expand into a matrix of your own lies, the internal pressure will eventually shatter your society.
The funhouse mirrors will inevitably break.
They have to.
They broke the rhythm, so they plummeted to the earth. But Dr. Waleed's text is ultimately a blueprint for success, right? It's not just an autopsy of failure.
No, it is highly prescriptive.
He provides the countermodel.
Right.
So if the children of Israel represent the catastrophic failure of breaking the wave, who represents the mastery of it?
Dr. Waleed introduces the concept of the Ummah of faith.
the nation of opening.
Yes, this is his ideal model. It can represent a civilization, a community, or even just a single individual. The nation of opening is the entity that successfully continuously rides the wave of rise and fall.
And they achieve this by respecting both mechanics simultaneously. They do not hoard and they do not hack.
Precisely. They master the Quran phase by holding fiercely to the unchangeable source. They submit to the pure regent. They do not try to rewrite the text to fit their political mood.
Right.
They ensure their foundational principles are anchored deep in the objective reality of the throne. This guarantees that no matter how chaotic the world gets, they always know exactly where the center is.
They know how to fold their wings.
But they don't stay in the nest.
No. From that incredibly secure, contracted position, they launch outward into the Furqan. They expand into the world. They engage with science, law, culture, and ethics.
They participate.
They actively differentiate right from wrong in complex modern scenarios. They test their foundational knowledge against the friction of reality. They inhale the pure truth. And they exhale righteous, constructive action.
And because they maintain this unbroken rhythm of breathing, returning to the source, expanding into the world, returning to the source, they achieve fact.
Continuous opening. Continuous progress. They never stall out and they never plummet because they respect the lungs of the universe.
It is a stunning framework.
It really is an incredibly comprehensive framework. I mean, we have traveled an immense distance today, all mapped out by the profound architecture of Dr. Khaled Waleed's thought.
From the very micro to the extremely macro.
Exactly. We started at the micro level, looking at a singular text acting as a chemical reagent, exposing whether our internal beaker is filled with the acid of arrogance or the base of genuine seeking. We ventured into the terrifying neurology of deception, examining how lying to ourselves eventually causes a literal biological deafness to truth.
We analyzed the architecture of the annual stress tests we all face, and how manipulating our personal calendars through Nasi's guarantees that we fail those tests without even realizing it.
Right, the self-sabotage.
And we looked at the necessity of a human messenger to prove that mastery is possible, and the absolute security of the cosmic command and control center.
And finally, we zoomed all the way out to witness the grand, pulsing wave of reality itself, the absolute, non-negotiable necessity of both gathering our strength inward and expanding our actions outward. Dr. Waleed's work demands a total paradigm shift from you, the listener.
It really asks a lot of the individual.
It demands that we stop looking at truth as a passive object. It is not an X-ray you glance at. It is not a dusty book on a shelf. Truth is an active, dynamic physics that you must continuously participate in.
It requires your physical and cognitive engagement. It demands the surrender of your ego and your absolute commitment to the rhythm of reality.
And as we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought. I want you to take Dr. Waleed's image of the bird in flight and overlay it onto the architecture of your own life.
That's a great exercise.
Think about your career. Think about your relationships, your ambitions, your personal ethics. Are you currently breathing? Or are you holding your breath? What parts of your life have crashed or are currently losing altitude? Simply because you are trying so desperately to fly, expanding constantly, working relentlessly, pushing outward into the world, but you've completely forgotten how to fold your wings.
We all do it.
When was the last time you pulled back from the noise, bypassed the funhouse mirrors, and reconnected to your deepest foundational principles? You cannot conquer the sky on the exhale alone.
That is a vital diagnostic question for all of us.
Thank you for joining us on this incredibly intense journey through the mechanics of guidance. Keep questioning the mirrors, keep seeking the pure source, and we will see you on the next deep dive.